We're going continuing our class on Hebrew prayer, davening. We are now reading we're learning about the different prayers, the prayer before the prayers. So the introductory prayers that we have every morning in shul. So we're going to see where we left off last week. Last week was a little bit depressing, because last week we were learning about how we're really all nothings. We are nothings of nothings. We are that the whole world really is not a real existence. All we are is just a dependent existence on God. The only real existence is Hashem, right? This is a theme that recurs many times in prayers, as we say now in this section of the prayer. What are we? What is our life? What is our good deeds? What is our chesed? It's nothing compared to Hashem. Hashem is everything, right? That's what we read about last week. And we went through this whole intellectual conversation about how Hashem is really the only real existence, true existence. And we gave a number of reasons. One reason we said Hashem is the only true existence because Hashem is the only one that's independent, and we are dependent. So it's like a child in the mother's womb. The child is not even considered an existence for itself because the child is a dependent. It depends on the mother. It's like considered like a limb of the mother. The fetus is not an existence for itself. Only after it's born does it become an existence for itself, right? So that was the first explanation we gave as to why we are all nothings, right? Remember? We spoke about nothingness, because we're not a real existence. Hashem always was, always is, always will be. And we're just sort of fleeting existences over here. We're not, the world was created by God, and at the end of time, the world will cease to exist. Everything that has a beginning has to have an end. The world was just created for 6,000 years. I'm giving you a little bit of a review of last week's class, right? And then we moved on to another reason why we're nothings. We're nothings because anything which is created from nothing into something always remains a nothing. Because the creation of the world really shouldn't exist. And it's only God that brought us out of nothingness. He created the creation ex nihilo, from nothing into something. So when you create something from nothing to something, you constantly have to be recreating it. And this is another theme we have in davening, is that God constantly renews the work of creation. That every day, the world is being brought into existence like anew. And if Hashem stops creating the world for 1 second, the world would stop to exist. Almost like the movie projection on the screen. If the projector stops projecting, the movie is gone. So we are all like a projection of Hashem. That means we don't exist. We're here only because of the benevolence of God. And the moment God stops creating the world returns back to a state of nothingness. So what is easier for God? Is it easier for God, so to speak, to create the world or destroy the world? Most people would say that it's easier to destroy something than to create, right? That's most people would say, right? It's easier to destroy something than to create. As we see, the guys up in the Middle East, the Hamas and the Hezbollah, it's easier to destroy things. You want to destroy something. To build up a country is hard. But to destroy a country, you could do it one day, you could destroy things, right? So normally we would say that the act of destroying is an easy thing to do. To build something is hard. So when Hashem created the world, what does Hashem have to do to destroy the world? Hashem doesn't even have to do an act to destroy the world. He just stops creating. stopping to create will revert the world back to nothingness. So essentially, we're a bunch of nothings. Okay, so this was last week's class, and we learned a lot about it. And we said we gave a whole mimer from the Rebbe Rashab, because last week was the Rebbe Rashab's birthday. This week we're gonna go more the positive spin. Even though we're nothings, we're really something. That's a Jewish way of thinking, right? Say, really, God, we're nothings. We're before you we're just a piece of dust. We're like a worm. But pay attention to our prayers, God, because we really are a something. And that's why you should pay attention to us. Like there is that always that paradox that Hashem wants to be our king. Hashem has to be our king, right? So when someone becomes a king, you say the nation has to say to the king, "You are the king, and we are nothing." Right? We are nothing compared to you. You are our elevated king. That's what coronation is. Coronation was a beautiful ceremony they used to have years ago with the king, where everyone used to come out, the whole country, and they come out to the king, and everybody would bow down to the king and say, "Long live the king," right? That was the act of coronation. So coronation is a funny sort of, it's a funny thing that happens, because on the one hand, we have to say, God, we are nothing compared to you. You are our king. But at the same time, if we are nothing, then how is he a king? To be a king over nothings really doesn't make you much of a king, right? If you're a king over human beings, then you're a king. But if you're a king over just animals or cockroaches or little grasshoppers, right? Then you're not a real king. So on the one hand, we have to say to Hashem, yes, we are nothing compared to you. But on the other hand, to have a relationship with Hashem, Hashem has to recognize us that we're something. So we constantly have that paradox within prayers, within davening, within learning, within Torah, where on the one hand, we're nothings compared to Hashem, and we keep on saying it. That's what we say, ma, ma, chayenu, ma. What are we? What are we? What are we? What's even our good deeds? Are they worthless compared to you? And anything we possibly could do is nothing compared to where you're at. We say that in our prayers, but then afterwards we come with a comeback. But like someone mentioned online, thank you very much. Same time that we're nothings, we open up a chumash and we see in the beginning God created the heavens and earth. So why are we a something? Because Hashem made us a something. He made us a somebody. He made us. He created us. He chose to create us. And not only that, for the Jews especially, we're the chosen people. In Canada, we're the chosen frozen, because it's very cold. So we call the chosen frozen over here, the frozen chosen. I don't know what we call ourselves. But God, in his infinite kindness, he created us, meaning we are a real existence because God made us real. And not only that, like I say, as a Jews, we have a few more things that going for us. So when we come before Hashem in our prayers, we say, Hashem, yes, we're nothings, and anything we do is nothing compared to you. However, you chose us, and you made us, and you created us, and you had a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. So you made us a somebody. So hence, please kindly pay attention to our prayers, because you made us a somebody, and this somebody is coming now before you in prayer. So let's give a look a little bit over here. We read a little bit on page 15. We speak about the humility, but I'm going through. You'll read that whole prayer yourself on page 16. Avol anachnu, but we come before you, Hashem. We say, even though we're very, very small compared to you, but we are somebody over here. We have value. We have value that you have given us. What is the value? He says on page 16, Aval anachnu amecha. First thing he says is, we are your nation. And he goes on to say, B'nei v'risecha, the people of your covenant. So we come to Hashem and Hashem say, before we start to pray, we have to establish that we have a relationship. We're not just a bunch of cockroaches. We're not just a bunch of little grasshoppers, but we are your nation. And we have a relationship with you. And that's always a very, very important thing. In any relationship, is that there has to be a back and forth. There has to be a give and take. It could be of a higher stature to a lower stature, but there has to be a relationship. When there's a relationship, that means that we are a somebody. We're important to you, Hashem. You love us, you need us, you care for us, right? You have an agreement with us also. So this is what we say over here, that we are your nation. That means you're a people. We are your people, right? And also the people of your covenant. And that's another step. Not just your nation, but we have an agreement with Hashem. So we have a covenant with Hashem. And that's a very, very important thing. That Hashem has promised us certain things. So when we're coming to God and we're asking for different things, part of it is because we are people of the universe that He created, so that makes us a something. The next step is that we are part of the Jewish people. And the next step is that we have, not just we're part of your nation, but we're also, there is actually a covenant with God. And this is an important aspect of how we relate to Hashem, is that we say, Hashem, we have a bris. A bris is a covenant, right? Boys, they have a bris when they're 8 days old. But not only boys have a bris. Every Jew has a bris with Hashem. Bris is the promise, the covenant. And many times in the davening, we cash in on that covenant. Turn to Hashem and I said, you said it yourself. You made us your people. And so please, Hashem, please answer our prayers. And then we go on to say, not just we're a covenant, but B'nei Avrohom ahavcha. We're also the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he speaks about all the different patriarchs. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this is another aspect that we come for prayer. We do that in the Shemona Esrei. We do it in all the other sections. Is that we come to Hashem and say, maybe we're not so good, but we had good parents. Right? We come from good stock. We come from Woodstock. We come from a good lineage. Maybe we ourselves maybe are unworthy, but our parents, our grandparents, especially Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're wonderful people. And in their merit, the covenant you made with them, respond to us because of that. As we know, the famous story of the rabbi that was during the Holocaust. There was I told the story before to this group, actually. I remember now. Yeah, I remember because Sonia had something to say about that. So I don't know if I could say the story again, but it's a good story, so I'm going to repeat the story. I think Sonia is not around anymore. I think she was here before. Are you there, Sonia? She's not here. I can say it again. Give me a second here.
Yes, I am here.
Oh, you're here? Yeah, okay. I'm just saying the story. I remember you had a comment about the story last time I told him.
Oh, thank you.
But it's about the power of our parents, of the previous generations. That we are unworthy, but we grab on to the coattails, so to speak, of our parents and our grandparents. So the story goes, in the Yanovska death camp, which is outside of Lviv, outside of Lvov, also known as Lemberg. That's today. It's like those days it was in Poland. Today it's in Western Ukraine. And so my mother actually was born there in the town of Lvov, Lemberg. My mother was born there in 1940. She was born while the Germans were dropping bombs on all of Poland. They conquered a lot of Poland already. But Lviv, Lemberg, they were attacking it, and eventually the Russians took over. After the Russians took over, later on the Nazis took over. So it must have been like around. My mother was there when the Russians took over, and but this must have been already 1942 when the Nazis came in. Nazis came in, and all the Jews that were there. My mother had already left. She went to Siberia at the time. She was sent away by the Russians to Siberia, her family. And she thought this was like the worst thing that possibly could happen, is that she was sent to Siberia. But the truth was that what saved her life. Because all the Jews that remained, most of them were murdered by the Nazis and were shot to death. The Jews of Lemberg, Lviv. So the Nazis, they had like this cynical sense of humor, whatever you want to call it, where they would take the Jews and they would play games with them, and they wouldn't just kill them; they just humiliate them and turn them into garbage, to break their spirit. So one of the things they would do, like they did in famous in Babi Yar in Kiev. They would dig a trench, or there was a big trench that was existing there already, like a little canal or something. And they would bring the Jews to the trench, and they would tell the Jews to jump over the trench. And if you made it to the other side, which was almost impossible, you would survive. If you didn't make it over to the other side, you would fall into the big trench, and it was one body of Jews on top of the other bodies, and usually they would shoot you then. They would, with the rifle, they would shoot those people. And if they missed someone, they usually would suffocate with all the other bodies on top of them that were falling. So this was like some kind of a game that they played. So in the city of Lvov, outside at the Yanovska camp, and over there the Nazis did the same thing. They dug a trench, and or there was an existing trench, and the Jews would line up. They would go. They'd tell them, "Yo, Yuden, jump!" And if you made it to the other side, you stood a chance maybe of surviving. But if you didn't, you would die right in the trench. So there's a lineup of Jews ready to go there. And this one young man, he's a philosophical kind of guy, a secular guy, and he's standing over there on the line. It's a long line, and he happens to be standing next to a rabbi. And this rabbi's name was Rabbi Israel Spiro. He was known as the Bluzhev Rebbe. Bluzhev Rebbe was a very famous guy. He had many of the stories from the Holocaust come from his stories. There was a book written many years ago called Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust by Yafa Elyak. And she was a professor in Brooklyn College. It's a nice book to buy, actually. And a lot of the stories she writes, Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust. Like from all the Hasidic masters that she met, she wrote different stories. And one of the main sources of her stories is from the Bluzhev Rebbe, from Rabbi Spiro. So Rabbi Spiro is standing online with this secular philosophical student in school, and they're together. Now, when you're online, the Nazis, there was no difference, religious, not religious, philosophical, simple, everything. It makes no difference. You stood online, you were like just a Jew. That's it. Yeah. We always tell that to the people now in Israel. That, when the war broke out, suddenly all the different differences amongst the Jews fell away. Now, that was a small silver lining of this whole episode that happened, was that Jews realized that there's more that unites us than what separates us. I just hope that now that the war is ending, that we'll remember some of those lessons that the war has taught us. It's very easy to forget things, So the rabbi is standing there together with this fellow, and it looks pretty bleak. And the rabbi is encouraging the guy, the student, have faith. And the guy is saying, look what's happening. And he said, no, you have to have faith in Hashem. And he's having a long discussion, trying to give him a little bit encouragement. That's what rabbis do. And he was not just a rabbi, he was a rebbe of some Hasidic dynasty. And they're coming closer to the edge over there, and the Nazis, they hear now the Nazis screaming, and they had the dogs with them, and the dogs are barking, and they're screaming and shouting at the Jews, jump, jump. And suddenly the rabbi and the student, they're right by the edge, and they hear how they say, jump, jump. And both of them, they jump. And they find themselves on the other side. On the other side, the student says to the rabbi, Rabbi, you're already an older man. How did you manage to jump from one side to the other? How did you survive? The rabbi says, it wasn't with my strength. He says, I was holding on to my father's coattails, my father who was a rebbe before me, and he was holding on to his father's coattails. And so to all the generations, I felt I was being carried across by my father and my grandfather. But then the rabbi turns to the student, the secular student, and says to him, but tell me, how did you make it to the other side? He says, Rabbi, I was holding on to your coattails. I was holding on to you. So it's a very, very deep concept that I find, though, is that sometimes we don't have our own strength, but it's the strength of it's the strength of that we take from generation to generation. That's the strength that we have, the strength that we take with us by holding on to the coattails of the previous generation. And so we too, today, when we come to Hashem in prayer, we say, Hashem, we can't jump across it's a tough life. But we say, Hashem, we're holding on to the ride. We had good parents, we had good grandparents, we'll jump over the trench. And when we come to Hashem, we say, we're not coming in our merits, because in our merits, maybe we're not worthy. But we had Avrohom, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avrohom, your beloved one, the one that you loved so much. If you look at it carefully, it says, Avrohom Oyhavcha. Avrohom, your beloved one. Avrohom, not just your beloved one, but Avrohom who loved you. Yeah. Then he says, Shenishbata le b'Har Moriah, whom you swore on Har Moriah. So it's interesting that we speak about Avrohom, we speak about the attribute of love. Now, know this, that generally we speak about Avrohom usually is love. And Yitzchak, the second one of the patriarchs, is fear and awe of God. And those are two very important qualities that we have to have. In Kabbalah, we call the right column and the left column. You need both columns. You need to have love of Hashem, but you need also to have the awe of Hashem. You have to be a God-fearing Jew as well. Like with children, when you raise a child, you can't just raise them with love, because there's a danger in that. What's the danger with love? Because when you love your kids too much, They get what's known as spoiled. Too much love is no good, right? You have to have also like a little bit of discipline. Okay, so that's where Yitzchak comes in. Avram is the loving parent, the gives. Like Avram stood by the tent and he saw people, he saw on the third day after his bris, he's standing at his tent outside in the wilderness, and he gives a look and he sees three guests, wayfarers. He goes and rushes out to them and makes them a beautiful meal and brings them in to eat and gives them all the nicest delicacies of the world. The Torah speaks about the 2 pages about all the things that Avraham Avinu gave to them. That's Avram. Avram was a loving guy. He gave, he loved. Yitzchak was the opposite. Yitzchak was more introvert. Avram was extrovert. Yitzchak was more introvert. He was more a disciplinarian kind of person. His approach was more yira. We call the yira of Yitzchak. Avram Avinu traveled from country to country. Yitzchak, because he was taken on the altar, he wasn't allowed to leave Israel. He always stayed at home. There's a different kind of personality, a different kind of level. And we speak about Yitzchak being the father of yira, of awe, of fear, of discipline. So to be a good parent, you need a balance of both. You need to have a little bit love and a little bit discipline. To have all discipline as well is also not a good thing, not a healthy thing. You can't be a healthy parent if you're just disciplining your child, right? Without love, just the discipline then you're gonna have trauma. Your kid's gonna be traumatized, and their whole life they're gonna be angry at you because you disciplined them a little bit too much. So discipline is important, but it can't be the only tool in the toolbox of a parent. What you need is balance between Avrohom and Yitzchak. So Avrohom is the right column, we call it in Kabbalah. Yitzchak is the left column. And you need the fusion of the two. And that we say is Yaakov. Yaakov is the fusion of Avrohom and Yitzchak, of the love and the discipline. And that's why it says that Yaakov, he had all 12 children, they all continued to be tribes of Israel. Avrohom had success with Yitzchak, but he didn't have such success with raising Ishmael, because he was just love, just giving. And Yitzchak was also, he had success with Yaakov, but he had some problems with the son Esau. So discipline itself also doesn't work so well. Only Yaakov was the one who succeeded in raising the 12 tribes of Israel. So these are all concepts. So we say that Avram is known to be the attribute of Havcha, your beloved one, your lovely one, your loving one, right? Because Avram represents the level of love. But we need to question this a little bit, because we find that Abraham exhibited also strength in raising Yitzchak. Because we know when God tells Abraham to take his one and only child onto the altar, right? That's not just love, that's strength, right? He wants to raise his child Yitzchak. God tells him, take your one and only child and bring him on the altar. Now, that's challenging, that's difficult. And after he passes the test, and he takes Yitzchak onto the altar, and God says, hold everything. It's not what I had in mind. I just told you to bring him up to the mountain. I didn't say you should sacrifice him. I wanted to see if you were faithful, if you were prepared to be a disciplined father, not just a loving father. Right? And so he says, now I know. Now I know that you also have discipline. You also have Yira, not just Ava. So we see that Avram had not just Ava, not just love, but he also had Yira. He also had the awe and the fear and the discipline. So why are we saying, if God said God's the one that said Avram, give a look, Avram has also Yira. So why do we mention Avram being the lover of Hashem? But this is a question that I'm not going to be able to answer today. For that, you're going to need to come back to the next class. And then I'm going to tell you. So what did we learn today? Recap. We are nothings. Hashem is recreating the world every second. Hashem we are dependent creations. So really we're nothing, but at the same time we're saying that although we're nothings, we're really something. Why are we something? Because A, because Hashem created us. B, because we are the nation of God. C, because we have a covenant with God. D, because we had good parents. And that's why we're worthy. So that's what we learned about today. But now we're going through in great detail to understand these patriarchs, these parents that we have, what was their level. And first we spoke about Avrohom, and we called Avrohom, he was the level of Ava. But I posed the question now that you're not going to be able to sleep for the next week. Question was, we see God calls him God-fearing as well, because he passed the ultimate test. So that for that, you're going to have to come back to the class. But we're not going to have a class next week because I Baruch Hashem wish me Mazel Tov. I have a bar mitzvah next week in Pittsburgh, so I'm not going to be here for the Thursday class. I'm going to be probably traveling then.
Mazel tov. Basis?
Thank you all, Basi. Basi's
Wow. Send our best. Mazel
right?
tov. Yeah.
So we're having.
Rabbi, may I say something?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
When you were talking about your mom and Siberia,
Right.
I was the lucky one that I attended your mom presentation in the shul a couple
That's
of
right.
months ago. And
Right.
I still feel such an admiration for your grandmother, for your grandparents, how they installed in the children when she was telling us that they sat on the floor, they didn't have furniture, very little food, but she installed in them stories. And
Right.
when I was lucky enough to approach your mom, I asked her, was there a music? Are there any songs? Because I heard few songs from other people from those times. And your
Right.
mom's eyes lit up and she said, yes, yes, she was singing to us as well. So I have such an admiration for your grandparents, you know, how happy in a way she made the children feel. I'm just speaking about your mom because I was the lucky one to be present, when she was talking about that.
Okay.
I hope you don't mind that I said that.
No, it's beautiful, beautiful story, and hope to see her Mitzvah Shem by the Bar Mitzvah next week. I will send her your regards. And the other thing is that just remind you again that there won't be a class next week. So in 2 weeks we will Mitzvah Shem resume. Okay, so
Rabbi, are you going to the Kines? Isn't it this?
I am going to the Kines. I am going only on Sunday because
Oh,
I'm going to be here for Shabbos. So
I see. Okay.
so-
Enjoy.
so,
Safe travel.
okay, very good.
Thank
Good
you.
Shabbos,
Thank you,
good Shabbos,
Shabbos.
everyone, to all our regulars and our guests, and it's always a pleasure having you guys here.
Same here.
Thank you,
Thank
Rabbi.
you.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to
everyone.
hear some of your
Shabbat
insights.
Shalom and Mazel Tov.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah.
Shabbat Shalom.
That's it. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Family.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes.